everyone to the BUEA board meeting. What is today? November 13th. Hard to believe. So we will start with roll call. Virginia, would you kick us off?
Hi, Virginia Theory. What do I say? Popcorn and
BUEA board member.
BUEA board member. See, I'm everywhere. Thank you.
Dee Del Rosa, ESD. Holly Warren, ESD.
Kate Rosenbarger, board member.
Heather Robinson, board member.
Michael Hover, board member. Phil Emerson, BUEA board.
Melissa, do you want to ask for roll call?
You look great.
Everyone doing?
All right, so if you'll just give us a name for a roll call.
Felisa Spinelli.
Thank
BUEA.
you. And our guest here today.
Hello.
Don Weiler, representing the Home Collective.
Taylor Brown, Office of the Mayor.
And Alex Pratt.
All right, fantastic. Thanks, everybody. Okay. We have some minutes to review. If everyone had an opportunity to look through the minutes from our last meeting, were there any comments, corrections, updates?
Nope.
Anything anyone had? Okay, hearing none, do we have a motion to approve?
Motion.
We have a motion second.
Second.
Second from Kate. All those in favor say aye.
Hi.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. All right.
I do have just a question
Yes.
for clarification. The last few meetings, just due to my IU obligations, I've had to be online. I don't know, I didn't participate in the roll call, but my name is not on the list, so I'm just not sure how that would work for minutes.
I can, I'll amend the minutes to say that you were there virtually.
Okay.
And since there were no voting items, then we should be, there was one voting item, but I believe that we had quorum at that point in time,
Okay.
so.
You like Virginia, I was online.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you
Alright.
for mentioning that, because I did think that there was another person or so online, and I thought, well,
Okay.
maybe it was the meeting before,
Mhm.
so thanks for.
I was the meeting before as well, but I didn't
Okay.
physically come, so I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
was just
think that
online.
should be noted. So can you make those updates?
Yeah,
to the,
Virginia and Phil.
Thank you.
So the approval per those two updates then passes. All right.
Okay.
All right, Don, you're up. Yeah, come on up.
Thanks for having me back.
Thanks for being here.
So what we have is a request for a facade grant for what is the historic Showers Brothers kiln, K-I-L-N. It's the furnace where they used to dry the wood before it went to the dimension mill to be cut into parts, which then would move on to the assembly plant. So converting this 5-bay, 5-battery kiln into offices to be used by all local businesses. And the original brickwork on the building has remained. A few parts had degraded where we reused the brick that was on the site to rebuild it, but the facade grant is to retain the existing early 1900s brick facade on that building. And that is the basis of our request.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you want one of these?
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
I didn't want to interrupt, I'm already late. Thank you.
So you're requesting 20,000?
20,000, yep. The total masonry bid to restore it was 104, but 20,000 would definitely help offset some of that cost.
We spoke last time about the amount of our facade being at 10,000, right?
Yes, that is what we currently have left in that. But as we are at the end of the year, and there are some lines that we haven't utilized.
Right.
We do have, if the board is amenable to it, we have not used the rest of our accessibility modification. We have not used the rest of the safety and security. Let's see, so business accessibility modification, we still have $25,000 in that budget line. Business building improvement, I believe that we have $15,000 left in that line. And the small business safety and security, which I don't have this updated on here, I believe that that might be down to 5,000, but likely 10. So in our in our zone improvement grants, we do have other lines that we can use.
Yeah.
I would say probably the business building improvement line would be the best one
It does.
Yeah, that makes sense.
to do the additional $10,000.
Yep.
Was there something last time that came up about the accessibility for the building? Did we talk about that?
I mentioned it.
You mentioned,
Yeah, because there's
okay.
other grants that we have, and if you have an ADA entrance, it could be eligible for
Oh,
a different
okay.
type of grant.
Yeah, we definitely do. On the east side of the building, we have constructed ramps for ADA access. Yeah, absolutely. So,
I can't remember the requirements of that.
So, I mean, that actually is well within the bounds of it. It's for ramps, sidewalks,
Right.
railing, and entrances and egresses. So,
that's good.
if the board wanted to use that line, since it hasn't been utilized at all this year,
Yeah.
you could take it from that and offset the cost
Mhm.
for that.
Okay, all right.
So,
That would be, I assume, a separate application at that point.
it would be a separate application.
Okay.
Or we could amend the budget to move the $10,000 into the historic facade and just do it with the single application.
How many offices are there, Dawn?
So there are 6 spaces currently, the 5 original furnace bays, and then the powerhouse in the back where all the steam generating equipment was. And the bays will be utilized, the northernmost bay will be utilized by one business, the middle 2 will be utilized by another business, and the last 2 will be utilized by another business, and then the power. So technically it'll be currently 4 tenants in the building, although they could have up to 6 if, each bay was used by a separate tenant.
Do you know about how many employees will be working in the space total? Did you say that?
Yeah,
in
it should be
data?
there.
Did I miss that? Sorry. Don't want to
yeah,
ask questions
and
that are
it's-
already answered.
So, there's the coffee
30
shop
60 parts.
Oh,
on the
there we go.
north end, which
Okay.
would have, I don't know how many, people typically work in a coffee shop.
Yeah, like
I
7
mean,
to 10.
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
And then the software company, which is like Brad Whistler and Mike
Mm-hmm.
Trotsky. I can't keep track of what their current venture is called, maybe
I
Paragraph.
still remember that.
Yeah,
Had
yeah,
Sprout Box
Cheddar,
back in
Sprout
the
Box,
day.
Paragraph, yeah. So, they have people moving out of the mill, because they've kind of outgrown the mill.
Mill. Right.
And which is really why they're moving into that. So they'll have about 2,000 square feet there, and with all offices. So, and then let's see, the Bailey Weiler office will have 8 people in that office, and then the one in the powerhouse, there hasn't been a tenant identified yet. So I don't know how many would exactly be,
Yeah.
or it depends on that usage. So.
Bringing more vibrancy to that area.
Mhm.
I think the coffee shop will be a welcome.
That's the word on the street is people at the mill are pretty excited, and I'm
Although
sure.
they get hopscotch coffee there.
Yeah, yeah. I think the idea of actually going out into the fresh air
Yeah.
to walk somewhere that's
Right,
close,
to get
yeah,
some, yeah.
is nice. Obviously, the Forge will come online. The hotel at some point will come online, and you got Solution Tree right there. So I
Yeah.
think and it has outdoor seating too. So, I think that's always nice.
And developing more employment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it'll be great for, meetings, like, just like if, we have a conference room that's full, we can always just go out and sit outside on a nice day.
Yeah, activating that outdoor space will be really nice because it's,
Yeah.
It's definitely underutilized at this point.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's a perfect space. I mean, the way it worked out with being just right there along 11th Street. So, and we have built steps so that you can access it. And then it was just a big wall, retaining wall, and then we took up part of it and put steps so that you can get into it from a couple different directions now. So
And will you guys do events there eventually?
certainly can. Yeah, absolutely can. I mean, I know. Definitely, we could always put up a tent to the north and also to the west. But then I know our space has a front lobby area that could host, up to 30 people, so. And, and eventually, we've also built the building such that the infrastructure we put in that we could go up. The original intent back in 2020 was to go up. And then COVID hit, and some of the businesses that were thinking about having a physical space backed out because, everything went remote and all that. So, so the building is constructed such that if down the road, we could add up to 2 more stories on top.
That's
We
interesting concept.
put in all of the utilities and such to support that.
Okay.
So we wouldn't have to go and tear things back up. So, we'll just have to see
Yeah.
what time needs
Okay.
in that area. So.
For curiosity, do you know the lease terms yet for the businesses and?
Still working that out, because we're still under construction, but it will be, I think each of the tenants is gonna sign a 10-year lease, and then it will be, probably higher than market, just because it's, again, turning the furnace into offices is not cheap, so. But I think everybody that is, everybody that is part of this project is okay with it because it's all local businesses. It's a historic building. Everybody is okay with paying a little premium because we just feel like it's worth it.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah.
All right. Good deal. Well, it's nice to see those buildings being saved and refurbished and then used for economic development in our core downtown, especially in our tech park, as those
I think it's
filled
the
out.
only, at this point, I think it's the only private money. And maybe until a hotel comes along, but it obviously was the first private money in the tech park.
In the tech
Yes.
park.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
So-
development.
that's
Yeah.
encouraging. Okay, any other questions for Dawn? Anything, concerns,
Yeah.
thoughts?
So I think we need to decide whether we want to reallocate funds from one line to another, or if we want to just do 2 separate
Right,
things
Yeah.
first.
I go
I
for
think-
reallocate.
I agree with you.
It-
Reallocation would be best because we had this man come back again
Yeah.
already.
Right.
It would be best to reallocate.
well, we
I
could
agree.
split the 10 into business building
Yeah,
and
and
still
still
Yes.
have 5 left over.
and still have 5, so we don't even have to move any money. Like reallocate, I guess, for the budget purposes. So we have 10 sitting in business building improvement, correct? And then 10 in facade. We could put 10 and 10 and fulfill the $20,000
Yeah.
grant request, and then it doesn't require any other specific action for
Sure.
moving.
Yeah, because the
Allocating.
application is applicable to pretty much both. It's the same information, so.
Okay, if that, does that sound,
Sounds good.
sounds
to me.
good? All right, so 10 and 10 to make 20 for a grant for the kiln, all right?
Agreed.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, I'll second it.
Second, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you so much. I
Welcome.
appreciate all you guys do.
Absolutely.
Or your lunch hour.
Is it the lunch hour? Yeah. Okay.
What day is it?
What day is it?
Right.
Where am I?
November 24th.
All right.
All right.
deal.
So, next is the approval of the grant transition proposal, and I'm gonna, let me see what I can do here, which screen I should share. Oh, okay, I guess I'll do it over here. Guys, I was so excited about how, like, oh, look, I've got everything going, and this is going to be so easy, and now I've...
Famous last words.
Yeah, exactly, famous last words. So, since we're going from a grant to a grant proposal, one of the things that we've realized is that the need for some of the grants that we do have has increased severely. So having in-person proposals are really great, and it's really nice to have someone come in and explain their project and all of that. But at this juncture, especially with like the safety and security grant, the business building improvement, and if we want to do any emergency loans, it's too time consuming. So this proposal is just an outline of like why we want to change the grant process to a standardized application. Mostly because everything it'll be the same information, it's in the same format, just logistically it works better for us. We can vet everything faster, and we would give these grant applications, the vetted ones, we would give them to you so you would be able to look them over before the meeting, and then we could come in and then just vote on like a stack of them instead of one at a time. So that's really like the bones of it. I'm sure you guys have all gotten a chance to read it at this point in time. But yeah, that is staff's request. So I don't know if anyone has any questions about it, but I'm happy to answer them.
So they'll still come in and do a proposal. It'll just go through an extra step before us.
No, they won't come in and do an
Oh,
in-person
okay.
proposal.
So-
This will all be through a formatted situation. So it's probably going to be the information, especially for like the business building improvement, all of the actual like physical improvement sort of grants will be very similar to the historic facade application, because it is pretty detailed in like what we need to know. It's like we need to know like when you're going to start this work. We need to know how much it's going to be, where'd you get the quotes from, like do you have to go to planning to get these things done. So the historic facade grant is actually, that application is actually a really great basis for the improvement grants that we already have. In addition to this, our department is migrating our grants to another platform that's called Civiform, which is a platform that I think nearly all of the departments will be using at this point. So when we have applicants apply, then they'll be able to see other things within the city that that they're eligible for. So it not only helps us because we'll be getting our folks to get more city money, but other people who may not know about the BUEA or may not know about our grant programs will be able to see that and know if they're eligible. So I think that this is going to be a great way of being able to get money out faster to more people. But the way to do this is to make a standardized application that will be online.
Okay.
So.
Right now, if I understand correctly, the historic facade grants are the only ones that really have kind of that standard
paper sort of, yeah.
So this will kind of bring all of those into some standardized
Yeah, it is.
application, and it will
Yeah,
then
so
allow-
it's a site, and I obviously have not gotten my technology correct today, but I
Okay.
can show you the website or send you a link to the test site so you can see what it looks like. But when you open it up, there's actually one module that says, want to see what you're eligible for, and then you just fill that in, and then it'll just kind of pull up all of the grants that the city has that you might be eligible for, and then you like scan down, and then it has all of the individual grants. So right now what we have in there that will be ready to launch at the beginning of the year are our standardized like scholarships. So the Resident Economic Independence Scholarship, the Business Enhancement Scholarship, and our DEI Scholarship. So those are ready to go because they've already have like a easy question format. Right now, I'm prepping all of these things because whether or not we go this way, those grants need to be standardized one way or another. So if we're going to standardize them, let's just go ahead and take the next step, make it an application, and make this a little bit easier for us to get the money out.
So a couple things come to mind. So streamlined process, the grants will come through you and your department.
Yes.
So you'll vet all of them, knowing if there are any items missing or anything that would,
Yeah, absolutely.
Once those have been vetted, they'll come to this group. So we'll get a standardized paper review of the grants.
Yes.
And then we'll obviously review those during meeting and would either, we could approve, or if there's questions back to the applicant, we
Absolutely.
could ask that.
Gotcha.
The other thing is I might ask that we reserve the right, if this is just my suggestion, but if others agree, that anything over $20,000 that we maybe still ask for in-person,
Absolutely.
or like set some kind of a limit, at which point we would like to see someone come in and, and give us an actual in-person, like with Ivy Tech or some of the larger, grant approvals.
Absolutely.
I mean, providing that, for the 5 and 10,000 and even up to 20, I think it kind of makes sense that we could be more efficient in having those go through your office and then reviewing them in a standardized way. But some of those larger grants, I would like to maybe still.
I really like that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
I very much feel that like Ivy Tech, MCCSC, like those larger, more, because those are more on the like sponsorship sort of side of it, where it's like we are giving a very large amount of money to these organizations. So yes, I definitely agree with that. I actually thought you were going to say lower. I was thinking it's like, these are like for $5,000 grants. But if you're willing to go up to 20,000, then and to standardize those as well, I am more than happy to do that. I will say that it makes a little bit more work for us, like on this end, on the like getting to you and getting the money out, but it relieves so much of the work that we have to do to try and get the money out. I would rather have this problem of too much work than the other problem that I've had of too much work of not being able to get grants to people. So
One of the advantages of doing this is it frees the board time then to help you with priorities, new initiatives, that sort of thing.
Agreed. I
I mean,
agree
it
with
take-
that.
Sorry. It takes a little bit of the impersonal part out of it, and they
Yeah.
can tug at our hearts so much when they're sitting here pouring out, But it relieves a lot of the time-consuming work that we have to do with every presentation. But I get that. That we do need to. We have so many things to go through in these 1 month, 1 hour meetings. That we can do a lot more if we wasn't doing so many presentations.
And Dawn had to come back last
Right.
time. We kind of
Yeah.
ran out of, so, I would maybe, I'm just throwing this out for consideration, anything above 20, that
Yeah,
we
I
would
agree.
still ask the applicant to come in. 20 and under, that could be through the application process. Because I was thinking of like Dawn's, did we really need to, I'd probably, if it, we had the paper application and so forth. But again, I want feedback from
I do have
others.
a question or maybe a suggestion. Because I liked your point about the personal effect, because some people do like to come and feel like they need to plead their case, and they may not be able to adequately compare it on a piece of paper, or, convey it on a piece of paper. So a couple thoughts came to mind. Maybe if we could offer for the applicants that are interested, they could do maybe a quick 3 to 5 minute video quip of something additional or have something on the application, is there anything else or anything that you need to clarify that is outside of the direct questions that are asked? Because I think we could look at those really quickly as well, as opposed to having them physically come. And I just think sometimes, you know, depending on people's capacity to communicate, it's not always easy to convey what you
Right.
really mean.
You're right.
And so if questions stand to need clarification, we're still gonna say, hey, I didn't really know what you meant with that big purple box. What are you doing with that? Are you gonna hide children in there? I mean, you know what I'm saying? We're left to imagination.
I get that. You're right. You're right about that, because sometimes you can't put things into words.
Yeah.
And just conveying
Yeah.
it into, just speaking it will clarify things.
Is that possible, Dee, with this new software platform?
I will see. I mean, obviously, like, it's a new platform, so there's gonna be a lot of kinks that we're gonna have to work out, because I know that, like, with Holly, because we're dealing with media and trying to figuring out how media gets submitted and uploaded. So there are things that will be kind of have to probably go through email. Like, I'm not expecting the first year of this process to be smooth sailing. Like, I know that I'm like talking like, oh, this is gonna be so much easier. That's not exactly how anything works around here, but
Yeah.
it will be more organized. Yeah, and definitely more streamlined. So,
Okay.
I think that is an excellent recommendation.
I agree.
Honestly,
Yeah, me
especially
too.
when we're talking
one.
about these restorative things that you can't explain, like how you're gonna do
Yeah.
a restorative thing on crown molding. Like, you just can't. You need
Right.
How
pictures.
passionate you are
Yeah.
about
How
the
passionate
project.
you are.
Exactly,
Yeah.
or how passionate you are about the project.
Yeah.
So, in the application process, I will figure that part out with ITS if that's something that we can do. If not, it can also just be like an email, sort of like just they
Yeah,
can send
because
us
they might
something.
have
and-
just even photos or different things like that that are some kind of support
Yeah.
their requests that would be really nice to be able to have.
Absolutely.
So, okay.
Absolutely.
And when like time frame? What?
So right now I am working on getting this standardized form set. I am hoping to have, because I know that we do have people in need right now, and I want to be able to start getting those out and trying to spend down the rest of this money for December, which I think I very much can with the applications I have. So I'm trying to get at least a paper one ready to go in the next week.
Oh wow. Okay.
And
So-
which I feel is, since we already have like the outline of the grants, it's
Mhm.
really just putting those in question form.
Okay.
So then we would be able to, I would be able to get those in, vet those, and then we would have a set for the December meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I have a few things, three.
Three
Sure.
things. Okay.
The first one is, I think this sounds great. Definitely the first one. Okay, the first one is like with the vetted applications and summaries. I think it would be great if we can like have a rubric that you basically fill out and then we see every time. That is like, I don't know, like values, principles, or like applicate grant requirements or whatever that just is like a 1 through 5 or like 1 through like numbers, you know, to see like how well people hit those marks. I don't know, just to have something like streamlined maybe for you and us. That's like, so it's not like just like a different like paragraph every time or something. I don't know, just an idea. I would like to put out that like maybe applicants that we are allowed to not vote on it a month if we have a lot of questions, right? Because sometimes we do have questions and like sometimes our packet gets to us. Well, I will just say I tend to reserve like Wednesday mornings for my packet reading, so I'm like ready. So like I don't know that I would get questions back to you and answered in time if I have them for like an applicant. So just like the idea that, hey, we will like most likely be voting on it on the upcoming meeting, but like we can, if we need to, wait until the next meeting if we have questions.
Yeah.
I would say. And then I think like it is neat to have like kind of like media options in the grant application, but I also like I'm a person who's gonna fill every single thing out and add everything if it's an option, you know, to be like, ooh, optional resume, you know, or like, and I would probably take longer on a video that I submit than coming in to talk, you know,
so limit the media options.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think photos are great. I also do like that with just having an application, like for the most part, we don't see like age, race, gender, and I think that is important. Just like, I don't know, thinking about like Airbnb, we're not allowed to see anything like that until we approve someone's, like booking request, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
And I like
Yeah.
that too, I guess, just like to, and that's kind of how HR does it here now too. They take like every single thing out of an applicant stuff. So I think that too is just like something to keep in mind, I guess, to be like as unbiased in that space if we're supposed to be in
Sure.
our review.
Yeah, okay.
Those are my three things.
No, these are great suggestions, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, what kind of coffee do you drink?
I'm decaf only. Yeah, no one should see me.
Okay, noted.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Great proposal, great suggestion, really awesome feedback
Great job.
from everyone. I think this is an excellent addition to this process and will help us streamline and be able to approve more swiftly and get more of those grant funds
So I have
out.
one more question.
Yes,
sorry.
go ahead.
Do we want like D to recommend to us approval or not? You know, I don't, because I think a lot of times like with you in the past, like when Jane was the director, you would kind of like set up the narrative of introducing the person, kind of like lean toward a direction, you know, like this is really ready and I'm excited about it, or not, and like do we like that, or do we want that, or do we want it like D to come at us more neutral or more like I have done this work and here I'm bringing it to you because I think it is a viable application, you know what I mean?
I understand what you're saying. My thinking on these grants is that if you've gone through the application process, you've given us the media you're asking for, especially for like safety and security and things like that. Like, I want to give out as many grants as possible. So to be perfectly honest, I don't know how picky I'm gonna be
Okay.
if the grant is fully, you know, completed and the project needs to be done. So it's not really, I don't think it's really a matter of whether I think it needs to be done. It's whether the project needs to be done. So I think it's a pretty black and white.
Okay.
So very much more taking it on the way we kind of do the scholarships, where it's kind of it's first come, first serve. If you've like filled that out and it's ready to go, then you're gonna get the money. And I think that's kind of how we should approach these until the budget line is empty. Now, there are some people who know how to get grants and know how to apply for grants and things like that. And that is something that I will be watching out for, because I do want to get money to as many people as possible, not just get the money out.
Yeah.
So that is definitely something that we do need to think about with some of these grants. What we have currently in these improvement grants is that they are one-time grants. Like, you can apply for this and you get it once and then that's it.
Okay, yeah.
Now, if we want to change that, we can, but currently that's what it is. So it's not even, that's actually not even an issue at this point. So.
I think in my time on here, there's only been once where maybe someone applied and we were like, this doesn't really fit enough into the BUEA zone or BU,
Sure.
yeah, urban enterprise zone kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was like not specific enough. And I don't even remember what kind of grant that was then. Like, obviously not a facade grant. It was like putting on an event.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, it's like, you know, if you turn in your application, like that's why we'll be vetting them before they come out. So I can be like, it's like, listen, I see your project and I see where you're going with it, but I need you to bring more to the table so that this will get approved before you can take it to the board.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's some people out there that get grant writers. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And we have to be aware of that, you know. Yes, they might need the money. Yes, it specifies the need, but they've been in this room before, so they paid somebody to write these grants. And we really want to give it to the people in the zone that actually haven't been here to get this money.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
we're sourcing it out for a need, for a reason.
So Dee, you and your team will really be sort of the first line of review.
My team,
and, yes. All of that.
Matthew, who is not here right now, yes.
So Matthew
You
will
and
be.
Matthew.
Yeah. So that, I think that you obviously know if there's specific, requirements to be met, because some of the grants do have, and then the historic facade grant obviously already has a lot of that in
Yes.
place. And so
Which
you'll
is
know those things that
yeah.
will be met, and all of that will be met before it comes to the board
Yes,
for
and
review.
the historic facade grant already gets vetted through
Yeah.
HPC,
Right,
so
right.
that one is one that
That
just kind
one's
of comes straight to us, so.
Okay. All right.
And
Okay.
then just quick.
Yes,
So
yes,
this is my teacher brain now, but would there be appropriateness for a template for people that have never filled out a grant to kind of open up the literacy component of this?
So, on Civiform, and once again, I should probably just see if I can try and open it up for you guys, because it's actually really,
Straightforward.
really straightforward.
Okay,
It's pretty
okay.
great.
Okay.
Let me see, where's my, oh, that little block is in the way.
And if, I want to be able to look at this, but I also want to make sure we pivot here in just a couple minutes, because I would like to get it to a couple of items on the budget, the first reading, particularly Holly, your project, which I think will be something the board will have some questions about, so.
And Virginia, just to say this, the other format previously for application wasn't that difficult of an application. It was simple. I had never wrote a grant myself, and it was just simple questions. It might have been a little intimidating because you're coming in front of a board for a proposal, but that was the most intimidating part. Now that we've taken that away, just to answer questions on a you know what I mean? That might be an ease.
straightforward from what
Yeah, that might be a little bit of an ease.
Form, so this is the benefits pre-screener, so you can go in there and just do that. And then, so for instance, let's just go to the application. It's really just like, what's your organization name, like very.
Yeah, and to take away us, it might be a little bit
Yeah,
easier.
so this is what we're going for.
One thing we do, so we just did our emerging artist grant cycle, which is now called artistic advancement grant cycle. And so this grant is like deliberately simple and meant to be accessible, but the first question is, give us your artist statement, and it's like, oh my God. So one thing we've talked about is just doing a couple of grant workshops. So we're already starting to do that with our artist community, but also just providing some links within the application itself that could say, write your artist statement. What is an artist statement? Just like, because there are folks in this community who are incredibly deserving of that money, but they haven't gone through a graduate visual arts program where, they have several workshops devoted to crafting that thing. So I think thinking about like how we could potentially integrate that kind of stuff into the software, and even if you ever wanted to host like a joint grant writing meeting or workshop in 25, I'd be happy to work with you on that.
It's like explaining to somebody, what is your mission statement?
Yeah. It's like,
What do you mean?
All right, so we just have to have a vote on this.
Yes, so any good discussion? I think this is an excellent shift in process. Thank you, Dee, for bringing this to the board. I think everyone's, okay, so can we have a motion to approve this new process?
Motion.
Virginia, second.
Second.
Lisa, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so first reading of the budget. I hope everyone's had an opportunity to look through this. So there's quite a bit in here, and my thought is, since we're obviously just getting a first look at it today in discussion, and one of the things that popped out to me is the $100,000 that's being requested for the arts incubator. And I think, could we is everyone good if we kind of start maybe focusing a little bit on that, since that's a pretty big budget item for us? There will be other items, but Holly, I think, aren't you teed up to talk about that today?
Yeah, I can talk about it, although I'm gonna try to have to stop by 1:10 at the latest.
Well, yeah, I think
okay.
10 minutes, let's go.
I
Okay.
think we want to try to end our meeting on time, so.
Sure, okay, great, yeah, so, okay. We have been working on this for a long period of time. So in 2022, when the city decided to keep the Waldron Art Center as an art center, one of the recommendations that came from the task force that was like, keep this art center, was you need to do a survey of all the arts properties in town and determine whether or not the Waldron is truly the be-all, end-all of performance spaces for the community here. So we did that. We brought in a group of architects, and I drove them around to all 1,000 million of our art spaces, which is awesome. And what their evaluation said was, at the end was, dear God, do not build another performance venue. There are way too many. What you need is a space for artists to make thing and build community. And so they propose that we explore what they call an arts incubator. So it's something very similar to the Mill. It is a place where developing artists who have the skills and desire to be professionals in this field, to have a space that is not their kitchen table, to make work, and to also have opportunities to do professional development. So they proposed a 50,000 square foot version of this that would have cost us $10 million. And we were like, okay, yeah, not gonna happen. So we started talking to other partners about smaller versions of this, and we ended up partnering with Secretly last summer. Secretly gave us a big space in one of their facilities, and we just invited 4 local artists to come in and use that space and see what they could do.
I'm gonna
Yes.
pause just a second. Secretly Canadian Group.
Oh, sorry.
Which is the record label, the independent record label
Yeah.
in town.
They are the largest independent record label in the country, and they work with the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, Bon Iver. They're a big deal, and it started in a college kid's dorm. So super cool. Thank you. And so they were like, just show us what you've got. And so these artists went into this space for about 3 months and produced amazing work, got accepted into local and regional shows, and then they had an open studio. So that's when you just invite everybody to come see what you've made. And they also made it really community oriented. A couple of the artists had small kids, so they worked together to create a slime making activity. And so it was just a really fun time. And Secretly was so impressed with that, they said, okay, let us show you this 10,000 square foot space that we would be happy to give you at an incredibly discounted rate to blow this out.
When you say give, do you mean that they have, that the city is purchasing a
No,
building?
we are leasing 10,000 square feet in a
Okay.
100,000 square foot facility. What Secretly has said to us is we are committed to making this work for the next 15 to 20 years. So
Okay.
this isn't a thing
So
where
they're offering a discounted leased space
correct.
for the project?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
so
yeah.
it's not really giving, it's offering space in an existing building they own
Yes.
with a discounted
Yes.
leasing price?
Yes, and it is.
For, what are, in the terms, you will have terms in a lease that
Yes, we
state as
already
such?
have terms in the lease. So the
Okay.
current lease goes through December 2026, but that is what this agreement goes into, but there are terms in that lease contract for us to continue to renew that
Okay.
lease for 3 years at a time.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you have, okay.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
and it feels like, to me, it does feel like giving, because for other places
Right.
I've looked around town, including facilities that are owned by the city, it would be even more. And
Okay.
when they told me this rate, I was just like, okay. So this space is awesome, and we already have a lease in place. We actually have an artist working in it right now,
Okay.
and we have the beginnings of a budget to make this thing run over the course of the first lease term. And basically what that looks like is getting a cohort of between 20 and 30 artists in there into individual studio spaces, but then we'll also be able to provide them with some specialized equipment. One thing we hear over and over from the community is when the Waldron Art Center was given back to the city, Ivy Tech took their 2 ceramics kilns with them So there are just less and less spaces for artists to have specialized equipments like kilns to make their work. When we were doing this artistic advancement grant cycle over the weekend, that's what everybody wants. They want money for studio space, and they want kilns to make
And
their
when you
works.
say studio space, you're talking about visual artist, or what type of artist
It's
studio space?
multimedia space. So it'll be folks who are doing pottery, it will be folks that are working in painting and drawing. We'll bring in other specialized equipment for folks to do printmaking, woodworking, as long as you're not trying to build a 30-foot type sculpture or play the drums. We're not going to be able to have ensemble music practice rooms, but we are going to have individual music practice rooms. There will be a space for these folks. In addition to there being these spaces for individual makers, we're also going to have an exhibition space. So anybody who is a studio resident will have the opportunity both to do open studios like we did at the first Secretly space, but also to have a formal exhibition of their work at least once during their residency. In addition to that, we're also going to have a performance space. So if you happen to be working in a genre that's not visual art or 2D, you can actually do a showcase performance of your work as well.
So when you say studio residents, how do people apply for studio residency? How are those vetted? And once all those spaces fill up, how does someone then get access to?
Great question.
Sorry,
So, yeah,
I know we're
this is
running
all fine.
time.
Yeah,
but
I am
these
happy to
are-
answer all
I
these
didn't feel like
questions.
this
Yeah.
section really said a lot, so you'll have to pardon me
Yeah,
for
no, that's fine,
asking
and I'm
these
happy to
detailed
answer more questions and give you more information for next month as well. But so basically, for the first cohort, which we're hoping to get in there by March of 25, so pretty soon, that's going to be an invitation. We have kind of, when we think about how to make this space pop, we're looking for artists who demonstrate an interest, much like our artistic advancement grant, interest and skill in making work and leveling up as a professional artist. So the first cohort of about 10 local, what I refer to as community artists, will be an invitation to specific folks to apply. And again, the application will really be like, show us your work, show us why you're committed to this and Bloomington, and give us a demonstration of your desire to level up professionally. There will also be an expectation for anybody who comes in this space to participate in a year-round professional development program. So that will include things like grant workshops on how to make it as an artist, how to show your work. It will also include studio visits by local artists. This is something we also did when we beta tested the space. And it will be field trips to other big fairs, so these folks will have the opportunity to network with folks in the region who are doing similar things to them, just to say, hey, these people are doing this too, I've got this network, I can make connections and grow. So that's kind of what we're looking for. So in addition to those first 10 artists that will be invited in by invite only, we're also working with Indiana University to create a program for their students that are coming out of MFA degrees to apply to have one of these other studios for free for a year. And they will also be expected to participate in that same professional development project. And so my hope is in this space we'll be able to have 30 individual studios. And so if we bring in over the course of the first year 10 what I call community artists, the 10 community artist cohort and 10 IU student cohorts, that will end us with about 20 studio residents at the end of the year, and that will give us 10 individual spaces to work with the second year. I am definitely concerned about saturation and just I'm being very mindful of, oh my God, we can't just completely fill this space like by the end of the first year, because again, we know there's a huge need for this in the community. I think there are like 8 studio spaces that like folks can rent now, and there's always a waiting list for those. So we're trying to avoid that as best as possible. So I think there will also always be kind of like a couple that I'm hoping we can do rotating things in. But I think we're also going to take a clue of like, if we have 50 applicants for 20 spaces, where are we going next? Like, how are we going to build this out more?
So just real quick then, so that's a good overview. So tell us about the $100,000. It says $75,000 will be used to cover a portion of the construction.
Correct.
And that includes an ADA entrance.
Yes.
And then $25,000 to support an annual professional development
Yes.
program.
Yes.
So just, I know we're really nearing end of time, but maybe just give us a quick
Sure. So
summary of
a couple of fun and challenging things about this space is it is raw. It is a raw space. Part of our lease agreement is secretly is building out plumbing for us and heating, so that's great. But it currently is not ADA accessible, so that's the first thing we need to fix. And we've met with Michael Shermis, who is our ADA specialist, and he's estimated that getting an ADA entrance to that place will be between $6,000 and $15,000. It's just a tricky space to negotiate. And then in addition to that, what I'm asking the BUEA to help me with is actually one of the first phases of build out, which is literally building the walls for the individual studio spaces. And then when you think about programming and professional development, generally when you host a workshop for artists, you are paying the folks who are coming in and sharing their knowledge. And you are paying to go on field trips with them. You are paying for studio visits. And you're also paying like the supplies and things like that to host an exhibition or a performance. So that's really what those needs are. And again, the idea is all of these types of activities and opportunities we're giving the artists are just going to level them up professionally. It's going to help them understand what they need to survive as a working artist. It ain't easy. And then it will also just enable them to grow their network to become just more known and more talented and just more visible. One thing I haven't talked about, and I don't know if I even mentioned this, is like, as well as this being a maker space, I think one thing that always makes me a little about making a proposal like this, and we talk about this a lot when we're deciding who we're gonna give our BAC grants to, is like, but how many people is this affecting really? I don't think it's worth investing $100,000 necessarily in 30 people, but I think when you think of the impact that this space could bring to that area of Bloomington, because it won't just be artists working in that space, it will be a community center as well. Open studios, performances, art exhibitions will be open to the public. One thing we're also considering is a trade option for artists who might not be able to afford, you know, a $500 price tag. And instead of paying money, they can offer to host classes. Again, this is a resource that a lot of folks feel went away when Ivy Tech left Waldron Arts Center. The visual arts classes went with them. Constellation has a great series of classes for students who are interested in theater and performance, but nothing for visual artists, and that's not on them. That's all they have bandwidth for now.
Yeah.
So we think about this not just as a way to level up our artists, but as a way to become a dynamic resource for our community, and also a place that people from outside our community will be really excited to go to. When we were working with this architecture group back in 2022 and thinking about proposing this, they helped us do a lot of benchmarking for spaces like this across the country. And I've been really lucky. I've got to go to some site visits for some super cool places. And I went to a First Friday for One in Brooklyn, so it was like super tricked out. But I mean, it was a family day, and there were like kids doing exercises with dancers. There was live music. There was a fire pit. Everybody was just there having the time of their life. It wasn't just geeky artists working away in their studio. It was everybody coming together as a community to have a good time together. So that's what we see it as a hub of activity going forward, especially as this area of Bloomington continues to develop with Hopewell. So.
Yeah, and so this is in the zone. It's in the south end of the zone.
Correct.
And it's right off the B line, kind of in with the Cardinal Spirits hopscotch kind of area in there.
Yeah.
Okay. We are at time, and I know there are other obviously parts of the budget, but I felt at least this popped out at me. It's a large addition to our budget, so I thought it deserves some time to be talked about. Now, obviously, we still have the budget to go through. I know we might have some grant approvals on for next month, hopefully in a streamlined process, but I really want to make sure we have enough time to vet the budget. Is one meeting in December, 1 hour, enough for us to be able to complete this?
I feel that, and this has happened in the past, the budget has not been approved until January.
Okay,
So January is kind of like, that's it, like, we've gotta get it done by January.
okay.
I am not opposed, and if the board is not opposed, I can schedule a special session, because I do think that we do need some more time to go through things.
I feel like there's a lot in here
Yes.
this
Have a
year.
budget meeting.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah, I think just have a special budget meeting to really spend the entire time on
I'm
that.
happy to figure out something. I would assume, probably, we're doing the second week, the third week is Christmas, right? No,
It's close to it.
it's close to it.
Yeah,
The
it's like
other
Okay,
option
I'll look at everybody's
could
calendar,
be, instead of a special meeting, is unless there's someone in this space after or before, we could either start the
Have an
meeting.
extended meeting, which
Have an
I'm happy to
extended
do as
meeting,
well.
since most of us, we already have this hour dedicated, could we put a half an hour in front of or half an hour in back of, and, you know, do a longer meeting, and, you know, we could take a little break, and then, you know, if the room is available for us.
I'm happy to do that for December, if you guys just wanna let me know, either before or after, we can throw on a half an hour.
Can we do a half hour earlier than a half an hour late, because my schedule,
Yeah,
Oh, so, meaning,
come in a half an hour
11:30.
early.
coming out, half an hour, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
either way, if a half an hour earlier works, I would be happy to do that, if that
Yeah.
works for everybody, for December.
I might have
Okay.
conflict with IU stuff,
Okay.
so, I mean, for me, Tuesdays and Thursdays are my kind of free days this semester, but I can't dictate the meeting.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
just let me know what you have, and I'll obviously do what I can do,
Okay,
Yep.
for sure.
whatever the
Okay.
majority is.
Okay, not a problem. So I'll get back with all of you and
Okay.
try and figure that out for the next meeting, and then for January, if we need to add another half an hour, we'll figure that out at the December meeting. How about
Okay.
that?
okay.
Okay.
Much appreciated, all right.
All
Thanks,
right.
everybody, for the extra few minutes.
Yeah, thank you,
Okay.
everyone.
All
Much
right.
appreciated.
All right, meeting adjourned then, okay.